Hello, this is Wes Bridel, and this is another Kingdom Calling economic update video. All of these videos are updates to The Coming Storm, which we shot a little over a year ago, which talks about the big picture of what God is doing in this time. It talks both economically and spiritually about what's happening and how you need to prepare. These videos are just meant to update you on what is actually happening in the economy in the short term. So we're covering about the last 2 weeks. I'm shooting 5 videos. This is the second of 5. And again, we're just talking about things in the economy, real estate, stock market, that sort of thing. Europe, they have the same debt issues that the United States has, similar but different, but they aren't a country, and so they're not able to do the same sorts of things that we are, just printing money out of control, borrowing out of control as a top tier area. You know, the United States government can do this. Europe's not really set up to do that. However, they have recently introduced bailout bonds, and they're actually very successful because they're AAA rated. In other words, they're kind of assumed to be guaranteed by Germany, and the Asian investors just gobble them up, and they're hoping this is going to help bail them out. The reality is they have deep problems, and just printing and borrowing a little bit more, adding more debt to a debt problem is not really going to solve anything. Ireland's getting very interesting. The Irish cabinet, 6 of the 15 resigned. Very upset. Elections, I believe, are March 11th. And the 2 leading parties, there's been one party that's controlled Ireland for something like 80 years, but they're hugely unpopular now based on the deal that Ireland has made, that they made with Europe. And so now the 2 parties expected to win the election have both said they're going to reopen those negotiations with Europe. If you remember a couple years ago, Iceland had similar issues, and the leadership in Iceland got together with the leadership in Europe, and they were going to make the Irish people bail out these banks. Excuse me, the Icelandic people. The Icelandic people have it in their system where they could put that to a vote, and they threw it out. I forget the number, 97% of the people were against bailing out these banks, and so they let the bank fail. They let the people who had stupidly lent money to these banks lose their money, and Iceland's doing fantastically now. Now Ireland, you have the leaders of all these countries, ours and Europe, who are wanting to bail out all these banks, and what ends up happening is the people suffer, and the bankers who made all the bad decisions come out fine. So Ireland has made that same deal. Well, the people that are going to probably win the next election in March in Ireland have said they're going to go reopen those negotiations. Now what they ought to do is throw them out exactly like Iceland did. We don't know yet if that's going to happen. That's definitely what the people want, but it'll be interesting to see what's going to happen. But again, if they do throw it out, it causes chaos in Europe, and it's just something to keep an eye on. Let's see, and the other reason, see, Germany, it's very complicated. The German people, for instance, want out of all these bailouts of Europe. They don't want to bail out all of Europe. They realize they can't afford to bail out all of Europe. The problem is many German banks have lent money to these other countries. So if Ireland just defaults, you have all the German banks that default, and the French banks, and etc., London banks. So it's a very complicated situation. The leaders of these countries want to, on one hand, appease the people, but on the other hand, they know the banks are going to go under. It's the same problem we had here a couple of years ago and continue to have. What they really ought to do is just let the banks go under. Yes, the economy is going to suffer, but the whole system can get cleaned out, and we can get moving forward on a better foot. The problem is they're wanting to try to get out with no pain, and there's no way out with no pain. So we're going to continue forward and just see where this ends up. The S&P 500 and the NASDAQ are now stretched further above their 200-day moving average than has ever been seen in 10 years. I don't know if that's true by the time you read this, but as of a couple of days ago, that was true. So hugely overbought markets. They're certainly being aided by all that money printing, and you would think it's got to come down at some point. No matter how much manipulation is going on, eventually the rubber band snaps back. And the more out of whack it is, the harder it snaps back. Bank of England, this is great. This guy, Mervyn King, is the head of the Bank of England, and he's actually being honest, which is incredibly rare in a central banker today. He's told the English people that they need to expect some suffering ahead, that their living standard is going to go down. Bernanke's, it's true here too. Bernanke's not telling us that, but I just think that's pretty cool that he's actually being honest out there. So I was thinking, last year at this time, there was a lot of talk about green shoots and everything was going to get better and everything's wonderful, and then of course it didn't. Now this year at this time, we're hearing the exact same talk. Everything's good, everything's fine. The media and the government keep trying to convince us everything's fine. Do you believe it? Was it true last year? Do you think it's true this year? Hopefully a lot of these points that we're bringing up give you an idea that that's not true. The IMF, the International Monetary Fund, is warning that there's global imbalances that exist which could cause a new crisis. So it's not just me saying this. Unemployment dropped sharply to 9% in January. So hooray, that's fantastic news, right? Jumped within 2 months from 9.8% to 9%. That's a huge improvement in unemployment. So everything's great, right? That's what we hear on the news. Well, actually the number of people with jobs dropped. You'd think if unemployment is so much better, the number of people working would be better, right? Well, that's not the statistical truth in the matter. The reality is the way they run their numbers, they've rigged the system to make it look better. People quit looking for work and the government and the media celebrates. Just because somebody's been looking so long and they can't find work and they quit looking for work, that doesn't mean the economy is improving just because your statistics no longer count them. That's our system today. Their shadow stats still keeps the old government numbers before they start really manipulating the formula. With that number, we're at 22% unemployment, so it's not 9%. Let's see, a little bit more on this. U.S. added 76,000 jobs per month in 2010. So that sounds good, right? We added 76,000 jobs per month over the course of the year. The problem is the population is always growing, and so the population grew by 160,000 per year. So we added 76,000, but we needed 160,000 just to stay even. So we actually have worse employment than we had before. 130 million people employed is the same as we had at 2003, even though we had much lower population at that point. Did you see in the WikiLeaks thing that the U.S. sold Russia Britain's nuclear secrets, or agreed to? President Obama agreed to sell away our friend Britain's secrets to Russia. It's just a bargaining chip. It's unbelievable that the United States would stoop to that. UN issued an alert last week that the drought threatens China's wheat crop. In the last video we did, we talked about the big food scares in the world right now. If China, which is the world's largest wheat producer and a huge consumer, if they all of a sudden, instead of being able to support themselves on wheat, become a big importer, that is a serious sign of trouble in food. Job openings fell for the second straight month. So it's kind of funny how you read everything's great and all the other details and other stories say it's not so good. 27% of homeowners are underwater on their mortgages after a 2.6% drop in value in the fourth quarter. And I just thought this was an interesting choice of words. Hillary Clinton said the Middle East is facing a perfect storm. Water shortages and oil running out. It's a good use of words. I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, if you haven't seen the coming storm video, you can go see that for free. There's a link right near this video to watch that. Thank you and God bless you.